Peter Andersen is with us, Chief Investment Officer, founder, Andersen Capital Management. Thank you for being here. We've seen a lot of times where the market comes under some pressure, but then claws its way back. I mean, it's been happening lately a lot. Sometimes we get some negative news, and then by the end of the day, we're green again. And even today, we were green futures, then we sold off. But now, looks like we're back in the green again, trying to give it a go once again. What does this mean? Are we climbing the wall of worry? Where is the path of least resistance?
Investors are used to this kind of thing, but it's usually more protracted. This is now compressed into what you say with almost minute increments in the day. So my sympathy is for the day traders out there that try to make sense of this minute by minute. It's just very difficult. And I think this all stems from, of course, the trade tariffs and the way the tempo of those, the way the news is released, how we try to run back to our drawing boards and figure out what impact that's going to be. And then all of a sudden, by the time we think we have an approximate answer, the whole game has changed. So I expect that to continue for much of this year, actually.
And at this point now, you also are focusing a lot on the AI revolution. Are we in the early stages here?
Well, a lot of people don't like what I have to say, so sorry to burst that bubble, but I actually think that something profound, I think, that we're not on the right path to achieving the dreams of all investors out there and all engineers, that this is going to replicate the human brain. I just don't think that it's possible in the path that we're taking right now.
So you would tell investors what? Because many people are putting their money into AI stocks at this point.
Yes. So NVIDIA, I was an owner of NVIDIA since 2015. I sold it last summer. I don't think NVIDIA ever, in its wildest imagination, thought it was going to end up being the poster child for artificial intelligence. NVIDIA started out as a gaming chip. And hats off to them that they've kind of rolled with the punches and reached new highs. And then it was crypto mining, if you remember that. Now it is artificial intelligence. And, I have a very brief comment about AI, and it goes like this. If we're trying to replicate the human brain is about the size of a soccer ball, right? And it requires only about 40 watts of power. That's what powers the inside of your refrigerator. Now look at what we're doing to try to replicate this. We have a nuclear power plant that's going to power a single artificial intelligence computer. And the size of this are like several football fields of servers. So I asked a simple question. If we're trying to replicate this, but we're using materials and energy that is tons of magnitudes larger, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's my proof in 60 seconds or less as to why I think we're on the wrong path in general with artificial intelligence. That's not to say that it improves our productivity and it has mule-like capacity, it's high-speed computing, but it's nothing more than that. Machine intelligence is very, very different from human intelligence, and investors need to recognize that.
Yeah, understood. And it sounds like your big concern is not really where we are in the development of AI, but more so how we're powering it with huge demands on power. We saw that big Meta deal yesterday, a 20-year deal, and with Constellation Energy, and right, and that was huge.
Yes. I mean, I'd take a 40-watt light bulb any day, and I think most investors would. If I came to you and I said, hey, I have a totally different way of doing this, and it requires no nuclear power plants, no high energy, no football fields of servers, and it only runs on 40 watts, I think that would be an enormous breakthrough. I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but that will be the correct way if you can formulate it that way. So as it stands, artificial intelligence is just one big, massive word complete on steroids. And if you've looked into how AI works, it doesn't at all work the way the brain works. That's fine, but let's just put it in perspective that it is not going to be the cure-all. It's not going to take over the world and the universe. It's going to have a place as what I would call like a working mule for all the questions that we have. It cannot think creatively, and it cannot reason the way we do.
What do you advise investors to put their money to work in? Where should they invest?
Well, I would say be cautious about AI after all these things I've said. There's still nice properties about the poster children of AI, the stocks out there. However, let's just do something simpler. Let's look at something that we can understand a little bit more. Cybersecurity. I think CrowdStrike might be an excellent opportunity right now, in my opinion, to get into CrowdStrike or even add to the position. Cybersecurity is like a utility now. Nobody is going to cut on that for fear of what can happen. It almost goes back to the Y2K era of 25 years ago, when people never thought they were going to be protected enough to encounter a horrible computer malfunction as a result of the Y2K. So I think it's the same reasoning with cybersecurity. We are never going to feel comfortable enough that we can say, okay, we need to stop spending on that. And in that way, that is a technology that we don't have to opine about if artificial intelligence is real or how much money we're spending. We do know that this is going to be around forever.
What about, so if you're going old school here, I mean, cybersecurity is sort of in the middle, right? I mean, but you started talking about 40-watt bulbs. So, I mean, what about just things we know, like airlines or pharmaceuticals or autos or healthcare?
Yeah, I think a lot of those that you mentioned, though, are dependent upon speculation about what the tariffs will do, how a consumer will behave. So take airlines, for instance, horribly dependent on consumer sentiment and inflation and how much money consumers can spend. Whereas, we said old school technology. I wouldn't call cybersecurity exactly old school. I mean, it's cutting edge technology. Right. But things like that, try to find sectors that you need to rely on, and also data storage. Companies like Equinix, in our thoughts, is a very attractive company, because even though I've just down-talked all the need, for storage for AI, we still know that we will require massive storage just for general data. Even this video that we're creating now, it has to be stored somewhere. So that's also like a utility. I would try to make myself not go crazy by making bets on what we think is going to happen with the tariffs. I mean, it's just a fool's errand right now in terms of trying to figure out the end game. And so if you can avoid that, I think you'd probably sleep better at night.
So with this sort of push and pull, I'll say, because you have these concerns about AI, that it's not going to be anything that people are betting on, and in fact, they'll be gravely disappointed. Does the S&P manage to get back above 6,000 or even make new highs this year?
Oh, I think it will, in spite of what we've just talked about with artificial intelligence. That's one component, but I do think that the tariff storm and this fog will lift at some point. And to me, it seems like the consumer is still in a very good position, in spite of all these things that we're concerned about and we fret about. I do think by the end of the year, the tariff issue will be resolved. Maybe a little bit more sanity will be absorbed into the AI picture. And in general, most companies will do better.
Yeah, that would be nice to have that happening. Are you a Bitcoin or crypto fan? Do you look at any of that quickly?
Yeah, you're picking on all my least favorite topics. Bitcoin I have never invested in, and I feel somewhat better than average to talk about this in terms of knowledge base. I hate to say that in a braggy way, but I was a mathematics and physics major, and I still am very much involved in that field as a hobby. So I really do understand the mathematics behind Bitcoin. And after I've done a deep dive, which is now about 2 years ago, I never thought that it would replicate the function of common currency. And I do think people are, again, chasing a rainbow on that. If you ask any Bitcoin disciple what the fair value is of Bitcoin, they just never come up with an answer.